Here we go.
Man, we are coming flying out of the gate today. It's September 26th. The year is 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode, it's 801. Off to our next new 100, like nothing ever happened.
Yep.
I used to believe that race Facebook groups were the best way to get fired up precast, and I've totally changed my mind because we just spent the last 20 minutes getting. If you could picture us, right? If you ever watched like the beginning of a highly anticipated college football game or NFL game, and they pan into the tunnel before the team's getting ready to go. They're jumping up and down. They got the music cranking, like, the strength and conditioning coach got the ghetto blaster on his shoulders, and the all the players are probably jacked up on God knows what, and they're shoving so they can't wait to be unleashed. That's what I feel like after our pre podcast talk. Yes, we are happy to be here. We got a lot to discuss today, but if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is very valuable. So appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We just spin, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as coaches, but athletes ourselves. Mike and I also like to talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. We'll use a feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and like to drive the discussion today. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, and you can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, and just a flat-out solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes way too confusing and way overcomplicated, and frankly full of way too much panic. It is a nice, safe, actionable space to get great information and a lot of zen to kind of keep you calm amidst all the other Facebook groups. So be a part of that community. We go in there every 3 to 6 weeks, do a bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the people in there and answer as many questions as we can. But we have no sponsors and we have no ads, but we do have a very important agenda, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. Hey, should I read this thing from our inside source?
Oh, dude, if you want us to go viral, you should read it.
Okay.
We never have like the clickbait titles and the weird snake oily type salesmanship or the crazy popular guest, but this is good. Again, like our Facebook group, good, actionable information from a trusted resource, and he's one of our own. So I 100% think you should read it.
All right, I'm going to start it off. This is about Chattanooga and the questions surrounding the potential weather situation.
You tell a little bit about who the man you're getting it from, though. And this is Tommy B. He's one of our longest standing athletes. We're talking like 8 years here, and has been with the TVA for God knows how long.
Yeah, he's on the inside a little bit over there, and he's not, he's legit. Just keeping it real.
I think he's legit on the inside, right? Like he's inside the dam.
He might be in the dam right now.
Yes, I think he's actually inside of it.
He's just reading. I'm picturing like the inside of a submarine, and he's reading the gauges. Looking at him right now, just working for you.
Working for you, the listener.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Tommy. So anyway, he said, so far, everything that was supposed to hit Tuesday night through Wednesday is missed. We didn't get the expected 4 to 6 inches of rain as expected. Local weather is saying rain starting later today through the night into Friday, then gone in time for high school football, which is great. What was my favorite team down there? I forgot.
Ooh, I can't remember.
Anyway, they have some good high school football teams down there.
Is it Macaulay or Baylor, one of those teams?
Yeah. I think it was Macaulay. I mean, Baylor. I like Baylor, too. I had a guy, Nick, from there. Anyway, slight chance of rain Saturday and Sunday, but a high of like 76. Great racing weather. I wouldn't expect much current. Most rain is staying east of Chattanooga, which could help with flow depending on release schedules, but it's hard to say right now. TVA is saying they expect localized flooding to be an issue more east of Chattanooga. So, we don't, I don't believe any weather forecast until like the night before anyway. So, and I think we were in chat one time. I think it was a 70.3 when everybody was 100% convinced it was just going to be a shit show, rain all day. We went to bed. It was storming and everybody was nervous. And when we woke up, it was absolutely perfect. So,
yep. And here's the deal from I almost commented in response to somebody's post in our Facebook group. But then again, like, just like emails, you have to remember that a comment and a response is an admission and willingness to engage. And I don't have that kind of engagement right now. But they go, hey, anybody heard about chat? I'm like, it's Wednesday. The race is Sunday. Ironman will never, ever make any drastic change until the absolute last minute. Why would they? Why would you make any change at all, period? Because what happens is if you change, let's say Friday, like, we're going to change, unless it has to do with like a logistical change, like, a second transition. Saturday is the day they're going to make it at the earliest Friday night. But that would have to be like, there's no way, X, Y, or Z is going to happen. But there's no reason to make any changes unless it's shown that change has to be made. Because if you make it too early, like you said, and then things change, then what are you going to do? Backtrack when half the people probably went home, right? Because they don't want to do a quote unquote not full distance Ironman. No, you wait till the very last minute. And had a person text this morning about like leaving their Facebook group chat or their text thread with their friends because they're all panicking every hour and they appreciated our podcast episode. I was like, listen, like race day is just like training. You wake up, you see what's on the menu, you get to work. I mean, it's seriously, because the amount of panic that people willingly induce in themselves, to me, is mind-blowing. Like, first of all, it's a race. It's legit a race. We do it for fun. None of us get paid. We do this for fun. And our livelihood doesn't depend on it. And hopefully, with the right perspective, your life doesn't depend on it either. It's just a race. Yes, it might rain. Maybe it gets adjusted. The chances are probably that it won't. And honestly, if you want to like backtrack a little bit, the chances of the race going off well outside the swim are even higher because they changed the course, right? Because if there's storms, there's a likelihood of trees down and debris on the road. Well, that's not a problem on the highway. Zero problem. And you're also not going to have to worry about flooding. So in my prediction, if I have to be put on the spot here, I'm putting myself on the spot. I'm predicting basically perfect weather on Sunday, slight chance of rain, overcast, cool temperatures, humidity's gone, race goes off just like it should, 140.6. Everybody's happy.
Well, all right.
And if it's not, it's not. But, you swim, you bike, you run just like you trained, and you pick up your medal at the end, you do the best. And what you have to deal with, guess what? Every single other person out there has to deal with the same.
Yeah. And like I said, some of my athletes had, not many, I think everybody's pretty calm, to be honest, but I just said, look, if it's a little rainy or something, and goes down and the conditions are a little bit imperfect, it'll just make it more interesting. It's going to be more interesting. It's like, I don't know. Stuff like that is like, it's a weird thing, but like when it's a perfect day out, I'm kind of like, yeah, damn it. Because I like to have a little bit of a wrinkle in the plot or something. Mm-hmm. And, this year at Wisconsin, it was like, everybody was like, oh, the weather, it's unbelievable. It's going to be easy. It's like, oh, it's going to be so perfect and easy out there. And then, it's never I mean, it's so hard to do an Ironman, and, just because the weather is perfect, yeah, it'll help you a little bit, but man, then you go face the wind and, you never know, man. You never know.
The best way to go about it, I think, and, then we touched on this a little bit on Tuesday, it was like, yes, you have to be detailed and specific, you also have to be willing to change and adapt. But the really like the number one thing you should expect and prepare for is that the day is going to be hard and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, honestly, like start there, and the rest, honestly, is probably you overcomplicating things. Yes, you need to be detailed in areas and stick to your plan. But again, all plans also need to be loose, right? You know, there's like even like nutrition plans, I think, need to be loose to an extent, you know? And so when you look at how people, because again, we see this all the time in training and in racing, people blindly follow their plan. And well, that's not true. Most people blindly follow their expectation, right? Or their numbers pulled out of nowhere, you know, and what they want to do. Headwind or not, they're pedaling. They want to hit a certain mile an hour, right? They're taking in a bunch of calories, but the weather changed and it's different from where they lived. It's hotter or colder. They're on course longer, intensity's higher or lower. Be damned, I'm going to take in my, 120 calories an hour, even if my stomach's not feeling good. I've got to get it in because I've got to run well. You know, they don't know how to adapt and the signs of like, if you're bloating, what should you do? If you're feeling cramps, what should you do? Like if you're extra thirsty, what should you do? Like all these different things, like the what you should plan for is for a lot of things to go wrong, right? And I think wrong, we hear that and think like, debacle or, my day's not going well. That could be just from like thinking through like what's going to happen if I come out of T2 or T1 and I get 10 miles, I'm like the old chat course. Like I come out of transit and let's say I lose a bottle. How am I going to prepare for that? Because I think stuff like that's important, right? Like, you've got, yes, ideally you stop, you pull over and you get it, but places like that, sometimes traffic is so high. And I don't know that I would trust myself being in and around most triathletes coming out of T1 in their bike handling skills to turn around and go step off my bike and grab a bottle. But knowing what the stuff on course tastes like, and if like to me, like those are the small details that, because to me, like the people that panic the most are either one, the athletes that have to have everything go perfect to have their day. Right. And they're super self-conscious about being able to meet a certain metric or time goal or just finish and getting across the finish line. But the ones that panic the least are the ones who have thought through every possible scenario they can think of. Right. Okay. Let's say I'm going, I train. I only like to use what I use on course. Okay. Which is, or I only like to use, what I like. I don't like to use Mortal Hydration or Martin or anything like that. So I like to use EFS. So I always practice EFS, but maybe one ride a month or even during the week, like when it's not like a real quality or important ride, you take in what's on course, even if you don't like it, just so you could know, okay, this is how my body's going to respond. At least I know what it tastes like, how much I can take in, how much I'm not going to take in. Doesn't have to be every single time. But then guess what? If you lose that bottle, you're going to say, oh, all right, I'm immediately shifting down to plan B. Because most people have a plan A, and then my race is now a disaster because it's not meeting the criteria for plan A. But lost a bottle, now I got to panic. Now I don't know what to do. Like very few people know how to triage when it comes to like in race tactics, in race adjustments, in race changes of pacing or fluid intake. Anything that goes wrong, it's now like a negative, but it shouldn't be. It should just be now I just move over to the next thing that I know is going to work. And so that stuff takes practice, and you can tell race week and race morning and during the race, the ones that have these things happen and they just adjust, right? On the fly. I remember Lucy Charles Barkley last year when she was getting interviewed post Kona after probably one of the most impressive overall days I've ever watched from start to finish, led the race start to finish. And I think she said at like mile 2 of the run, her Achilles hurt so bad that she wasn't sure if she was even going to finish. But she never even stopped to walk to like figure it out and see if it was going to I think later on in the race, she walked a little bit on the aid station because it was getting hot. But can you imagine for first thought was, oh, my Achilles hurting, I'm done. And then started walking. She never would have won. And so I think there's, again, it's a mindset. There's also things like I know I talked last podcast about learning how to change a tire, right? Working on things on course, like practicing. We did that. I know you referenced back in the Tuesday that, or maybe it's the week before, like that 1 mile effort we did on the track that year in like the blazing heat. And I think we also, I believe, set up a table to serve as an aid station. You only got to drink every mile. And we set the table up and we got our bottles out. You could only drink every mile, just like an aid station, right? Preparing to not, again, because I think carrying something is not the most ideal for most people. Anyway, I had an athlete that just did a 70.3 and she went and looked back at her file. We were trying to figure out like why, like where were our, it was a hot day and it was not ideal conditions, but I think she said she spent 11 minutes standing still over the course of a half marathon, just refilling her handheld in her bottle. Oh. That's a whole mile of standing still. And that's not an error, right? That's just an experience, and you learn from it, and you adjust and you make things different. But again, I think we don't do enough practicing of scenarios of things going wrong. We just expect things to go perfect on race day, and then when we don't, we panic.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier about prepare for the day to be hard and challenging. And I just, it's so easy to forget that sometimes. And I was actually kind of working on a little email to send out to my athletes that are racing this weekend. And I was talking about, and of all the Ironmans I've done, it's never once crossed my mind to quit. But a million times the thought of giving in crossed my mind. Mm-hmm. And when I say giving in, I mean basically walking or, kind of throwing in the towel, you know, and that has been the biggest challenge for me. So I think that, and I think I definitely have given in, and I talk about pain, and it's not like injury pain and things like that. It's just sort of the natural pain that you feel in Ironman that is like a one of a kind sort of pain. You can try and practice it and get through it in training, but you have to be mentally prepared for it to come up. And I think that's why, personally, I believe Ironman is so mental, is because, there's so many times in the race when you just kind of think you're done, but then you can kind of come back from it. So how do you prepare for this mentally? And I think what you said is great. Is like, you can prepare, you can't really prepare. You can prepare for weather, but like you can't really do anything about it. But what you can do is kind of, harden or callous your mind right now about not giving in when that time comes. And, like I said, I've done it many times, but then, rebounded to kind of get back in the game. It's like, those are the little differences I think that it makes in Ironman. Like I think you said last time, it's all relative, whether, you're at the top of the end and you're running 7:30 pace or you're on a 13-minute pace. It's all relative. It's going to hurt, it's going to be a challenge. I'm sure people have gone through Ironman and really haven't hurt that much, but I haven't been at that 7:30 situation ever, so I don't know what these people feel like, but it's going to be there. So how are you going to get through the giving in part? Maybe a dozen or 50 times. It's like, don't let it happen. And I think you'll be happier that you didn't, even though in the moment it would be really nice to find a recliner on the side of the road.
I think it would be actually quite, that would be like the ultimate troll.
Yeah, what? Free recliners.
We grab a U-Haul. Yeah, we'll grab
this thing vibrates too.
It will get it sponsored by Hyper Ice, and then every quarter mile on the back half of the Chat Run course in Barton, we'll have a recliner. Recliner, nothing else to see here. Just a nice ice water recliner.
Right at the beginning of the aid stations, that'd be sweet.
Exactly. Right at the beginning, because dude, it's so true, right? And I think, there's so much to be said in everything that we do, right? Like I had a couple like a couple text messages from friends and athletes who listen to the podcast or have been to our camps. Like, hey, appreciate your podcast Tuesday. I'm so right. Like when I'm traveling, if I forgot my AirPods, like I just use that as an excuse to like not go run. Like this little device in your ear that allows you to listen to music is a reason for not running. Or you forgot your watch and you can't swim. Or you can't, God forbid. I know this is gonna trigger a lot of people here, but your workout won't sync to your bike computer, and you have to do it old-fashioned way with just reading the workout with your eyes and using the lap button and changing gears. I know it sounds prehistoric, and it probably causes a lot of. I can feel triathletes all across the globe breaking out in hives right now, imagining the horror of this injustice that sometimes we have. But that's a legit reason people don't get on their bike and don't worry. It's like when you look at how we make decisions and what you're looking for, right? Because I think especially like when you go into races, what do you look for? Do you look to be successful, or do you look for a fucking red carpet from the first stroke in the water? There's a reason the red carpet isn't till the end of the race. They don't roll it out in the swim, right? They're not giving you a wetsuit swim no matter what. They're not giving you downstream no matter what. They're not giving you a tailwind and a downhill bike and the same thing for the run with the red carpet the whole way. Here we are. Here we go. This is it. And they call it, SoftMan. No, like they came up with the name for a reason. This shit is really, really, really hard. It is really challenging. And I think the last like 6-7 years, it's like been promoted to be a lot more like easier than it is. And I also think that's why the DNF rate has been as high as it's ever been in the last 3 or 4 years across full distance races. But if you look at how you approach a race, like don't look for the perfect day. Expect a challenge and expect to be nimble and quick during the race, just like in training. Because honestly, the best athletes that get the most out of themselves and their experience each and every day in training, each and every week, month, out of the year, and in races are the ones that know how to pivot. If you don't know how to pivot, you'll never know how to change direction. You'll never know how to get to the finish line in still the fastest way possible. I know this because I've talked to so many athletes that we coach. I've heard, professionals talk about it. In a lot of times, like, yeah, sometimes like, Annie Haug's experience when, she, had the flat coming out, but there's a lot of times these like really challenging things happen during the course or during an athlete's buildup to a big race of the year, and they still make it happen. They still get the job done and they still win. Like, so some people that would sideline them and they would give up. Other people, they find a way to, get a penalty, drop a bottle, get a flat, have their Achilles hurt, lose their goggles, go off course in the swim, maybe go off course during the bike ride and come back and win. Those are called champions, right? They're not looking for a perfect day. They're not expecting the perfect day. They're not willing, and frankly, why would you? And I think that's part of like the culture we have created as participants in the sport. And then I think a lot of the branding and messaging Ironman has had out the last few years trying to increase popularity, increase attendance. I think the messaging has been more like lowering the barrier of entry. Yes, anyone can do it, but anyone who trains to do it and works hard enough can in fact do it. Not just because you sign up, you don't just get to do it. And I think we've like lowered that. And again, I think society is probably softer than ever in a lot of ways. Yeah, for sure. But I think like when you go into these races and you go into training, we rarely ever look for hard things anymore. And yeah, life is hard. But again, the harder things you go through life, the easier things become that used to feel hard. The things you used to be able to never adapt to and never, navigate, and they used to ruin your day. They don't do that anymore. Like if you go through those, it doesn't happen anymore. You don't get phased, right? We all know those people who they don't ever get phased, right? And even if they do, they don't show it because they're internally trying to figure it out. And you don't learn that because of getting like a free pass everywhere you go, or a silver spoon in your mouth, or never having to have obstacles and having, you know, a really easy peasy life. Like, it's hard to learn, in my opinion, it's hard to learn things from that. Or we learn from our experiences. We learn from challenges. We learn from failures, right? Most people's greatest successes come straight from and as a result of their failures, right? And yes, can you mitigate the effect that an overall mistake, right, on race day has on your overall race and your overall life? 100%. You can practice those things. You can practice being nimble. You can practice getting over obstacles. I mean, we used to do this, you know, back when, I know you guys hate this more than anything, but when we would do open water swims, those 3 days a week, 12 years ago, I'd have you guys run into the water with your goggles wrapped around your neck. Or I'd make you go into the water, fill your goggles up with water, put them back over your face so you couldn't see, and rush into a mass start and start swimming. Like, that probably seems ridiculous, but when you get into a race and you drop in, no one that ever came to those would go and have panic attacks and freak out at races, right? Like, you dropped into the mass start with 3,000 plus people in Wisconsin, and everybody was like, and it seemed easy. And now what happens is we create like these really soft training environments and lack of decision making within training. And then when race day happens, because, you know, Mother Nature hasn't changed, right? Terrain hasn't changed. Like, the unpredictability of races has not changed, but the control factor within training has changed, right? So there's a distance now between training reality and what we feel and we practice and what is there on race day. You know, back in the day, it was like, you know, you're a smart trainer, you were outside. You know, you're running outside, swimming outside. There was no form goggles, no AirPods. It was just you and you in your head for forever. And I just think that there's this difference that's making things more challenging. And because you can control so many things in these condensed environments that people love to train in, which I get, I do it too, you know, because it's very it's a time saver. But at the same time, like, if you want to go in these races and you truly want to get the best out of yourself, expect shit to happen. And I don't think people go through that, right? I think when people do like their night before visualizations, they always visualize the perfect scenario, the perfect day. That like almost never happens. And if it does, it's like you got lucky. What you should be visualizing is any mistake possibly can happen, right? You forgot your pump walking down to transition race morning. Oh my God, what am I going to do? There's only 930 other ones in transition that I can use. You know, my tire, I got back to transition and my tire's flat. Okay, ask the mechanic to change it. My wetsuit ripped. Okay, big deal. That might cost you, I don't know, all of maybe 15 seconds on the race course, but not much. Goggle starts leaking. Tread water, fix it. You know, boobies. Like, honestly, visualize everything going wrong possibly that you could think can go wrong. And in the process of doing that, you're also then visualizing how you are going to overcome that obstacle. You wake up on race morning and the Ironman tracker says, you know, due to unforeseen circumstances, you know, whatever the standard line they give is, you know, we've made the decision for athlete safety to, you know, cancel the swim. How are you going to respond? How are you going to respond? Are you going to race over to the downtown YMCA and try to get in your 2.4 so you can say you're an Ironman that day? Or are you going to get locked and loaded and ready to figure out how to do, you know, a bike run or a bike run? And how does that change does it change your fluid intake or your watt goal for the day? And how are you going to approach it? No one goes through that. I think visualizing the perfect day is fantastic. And to do that in training, I think is even more, because you can do it over and over and over again. But race week, start visualizing everything that goes wrong. You know, I get a blister. What am I going to do on the run? How am I going to navigate that? You know, I get a pain in the bottom of my foot. How am I going to navigate that? I can navigate, and here's how. That way on race day, none of it's a surprise. None of it. Lose a bottle, here's what I do. Stuck with fluids and nutrition on course, I got a plan. Like, have a plan. And I just think most athletes go into these races now with zero plan of how to adjust, and only an expectation and hope that the red carpet's rolled out from the gun when the gun goes off in the swim?
Well, you really touched on a nerve there with me.
Sorry about that. I thought we touched on all of our nerves precast, but you know what? We all got a couple extra nerves out there.
No, I just because when you're talking about, and we've talked about it, but the pre-built workout, like if people can't sync something or whatever, and it just dawned on me that I honestly think this is going to sound really. I know a lot of people are going to be like, "What the hell?" But I used to, when we started, I think for the first 2 to 3 years, I basically used a chrono watch for my training. That little Timex chrono. And, we had workouts that were written out. There's no sync. I didn't have any built workouts or anything like that. So you were talking about learning and how do you learn? And for me, it comes back to like, I would memorize these workouts, right? Or at least kind of loosely have them memorized. And I wouldn't, be all bummed out if I missed like 30 seconds of an interval or whatever, I'd have to check sometimes, but I would learn my body that way. And if it said, 105% of FTP, it's like always a loose thing with me, but I would push it and just accept that as it was. And, and I kind of just try to gauge what I had. And I think what you're talking about is learning to deal with situations on the race course. I think that is how I learned it the best, is that I would, like for example, on, a lot of times I used to just do a Wednesday Moneghetti run or something along that lines. It was basically, I had it memorized. I'd go out and I'd hit restart and I'd do 30 seconds on, I'd do 30 seconds off or what. I wouldn't even maybe hit restart. I'd just go by the clock. But like, I really got a handle on things, it's like the variety that we talk about, and you talk about varieties for the week sometimes. And I totally agree. It's like, why, if we're trying to get better, the way to get better is to sort of like master principles and master techniques and things like that. So that's really what we're looking at. We're not looking for just some crazy wild variety workouts all the time. And if you think and something's getting better, that's great. I talk about this guy Alan Watts that I listen to all the time, and I just love that dude, man. He's like recording these lectures in the 60s and 70s, and the other day I was listening, he was like, where people got into a problem is when we decided that we could figure out and control our outcomes all the time. And then, he was talking about technology in the 60s. He goes, the problem with technology is, they come in and they say it's going to solve the problem, but what they don't realize is they're creating 10 more problems every time they solve that one problem. So there's never an end to it. And that's kind of how I look at all this stuff, man. It's like, you're going through the motions in like erg mode or something all the time. And it's like, you never even get a handle on what you really are feeling, or, maybe you feel better than that some days. That's sort of how I feel like the minute I put a Garmin on, I was like, all of a sudden, all right, I'm not going as fast as I thought I was or whatever. And then, it could be wrong. It might not even be accurate. And now you're always in your head, and those little like faults and readouts from all this shit just kind of can get in your head, and it kind of tightens you up as a person or in your head, and it's like you're not out running anymore. You're not out riding anymore. You're starting to think about, I'm underperforming today, I guess, compared to last time. Really? Okay. That sounds great. So, if you're really trying to learn and like you're saying, be ready to handle race situations, put yourself in them. Make something imperfect. I mean, I think perfection is like an illusion anyway. You're gonna lay out your whole course based on this mile. I'm gonna be pushing 200 watts right through here. Mm-hmm. And then you're in your. Well, I mean, what is that? You're not even riding anymore. You're just mechanical. I don't know.
I mean, I struck your nerve, and in turn, your nerve being struck has now struck my nerve. Because like when you think about how, and this is one of the most challenging things I think that I deal with on a day-to-day basis as a coach. And because it's, you're in the service business, right? You serve and you work with, and you have, athletes that are your customer, but you work with them and they like the things that they like. But if you think about how absolutely detached you become in training when it's totally automated. Because so I'm going to break down a scenario with you, and you tell me how like disruptive the signals are from your brain to your body and your body to your brain. You have athlete A outside riding, no earphones, just them in the road, wind, terrain. They can hear their heartbeat. They can feel the power. They're judging their effort. They're going up hills. That you have to feel and be observant and feel, just like when you're running, right? With nothing. You can feel it. Like you can hear your footsteps. Am I quick? Do I have quick feet, or am I landing like a freaking elephant? Right? I can hear myself breathing. And then take that rider and put him over in a box, and then take what happens a lot of times now is you've got Timmy Try on his TT bike, on his smart trainer, in erg mode, with Zwift following up. You got Netflix on the right. This is that he watches, like, a mindless show, but he's not even in TT. He's sitting up texting his buddy. There, how many signals there are that are not getting through? Hundreds. There is no feel. There is no understanding, right? And it's also why, like, if you talk to a lot of top, like, elite level coaches, that's why a lot of them still use heart rate, because pace and power is, yes, they're important metrics 100%. But if you just totally ignore your heart rate, or you totally ignore how you feel, like, that's what gets you in trouble. 100%. That's what gets, if power. I was listening to an interview with your boy Tadej Pogacar, and he said that on that climb that we referenced years ago when he came back and beat Roglic, or how do you pronounce his last name? He, again, going down to the finer details. Listen to the detailed decision they made. They switched out the TT bike from a road bike on the climb. They left. This is to win the Tour de France, not the local 5K, right? Turkey Trot. This is to win the Tour de France. His TT bike, hops off, grabs his road bike. You know what wasn't on his road bike? Bike computer. They wanted his bike to be so light that they left off his bike computer. The one device that was going to tell the person what their heart rate was and what their power was trying to win the Tour de France. They didn't think to leave off anything else. They chose to leave off, among other things, his bike computer. And how, metric data obsessed people are in cycling. And that was to win. That was to transcend what he was capable of. There was no governor. The point was to win. And I was listening to a couple interviews this last week with David Roach, who just shattered the Leadville record. And he said, my goal is to go out and shoot my shot early and not be afraid to fail. And I was going to go out as fast as I could possibly go and then see what happened in his first ever 100. I think he broke the record by like 16 minutes. He had made up all 16 in the first 30 miles.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like, so I think when we disassociate from like how we feel so much, and we wonder why we don't, because I don't think it's not that we don't feel signals on race day, whether it's anxiety or panic, or I'm getting too hot, or I'm getting too cold, or I'm getting bloated, or I'm getting the chills. Like, I don't think it's that we don't feel those. I think it's that we have yet to have enough experiences in life to where I know how to navigate those. Like, what's this underlying feeling that's bubbling up in me? Is that, because the same thing with people that are in total denial about certain aspects of their life and the way they feel. The more you're in denial and where you pretend it's not there, and you're using whatever mechanism that is to not deal with it. When it comes crashing, you don't know how to deal with it. And like, you have to work through, like, what are those signals telling me? But if you aren't accustomed to feeling them because you're so distracted, right, then you're not going to know how to navigate them. And it is, I think it's becoming a total lost art in how we've And I do. I think a lot of underperformance comes from constant restraint. And because I think that we have, and this is on coaches too. This is on me. And other coaches, I think, do the same thing. Is we become so obsessed with, creating the perfect plan or the perfect workout. And, there's a time and a place for creating, specifics in every workout. But that we remove the exploration and the freedom that athletes should always have to find their peak, their Everest. And you can't just do it every once in a while. You got to do it more frequently. Just run out in right field. But what pace? I don't just go out and run easy. What is that? What pace is that? It's not a pace. Easy is an effort. Hard is an effort. I would be willing to bet, if you haven't done any like formal testing, then your high heart rate or your threshold heart rate is probably like 10 to 15, maybe 20 beats off. And I think there's a lot of people who I used to think more oftentimes than not, people go too hard. And now I'm convinced the opposite. That's like one of my switches in like how I think and behave and kind of look for things with athletes. Is I used to be too convinced and look for athletes that are going too hard all the time and like that gray upper gray zone 3, low zone 4 every day. And now I'm working because I feel like everyone is like gone like, oh, we got to be too safe. And I feel like they're in like low, barely zone 1 and not even in like zone 2. Too easy all the time. And what they think is zone 5 is probably actually like zone 3. Oh, and so yeah. I do. I've seen that a lot more than I've ever had in the past. And I think we just make too many rational decisions based on, really everything, instead of just listening to what we're feeling in the moment. And yes, you should be able to pull back when you should be able to pull back, but you should also be able to have the freedom to like hammer it forward when you want to hammer it forward. And like, I think you and I've talked either off air or on air about like, sometimes I'll get pissed at myself. Like if I'm going to do something or I'm about to walk outside and I just habitually grab my phone and pull it out of my pocket. Some days I just get irritated. I'm like, why the fuck? Like I have my phone on silent 24/7, but I'm like, there was no need to do that. Put it back in your pocket. I get irritated. And the same thing happened to me the other day on my run. I was running the other morning. It was still dark, pitch black out, not a cloud in the sky, the moon, stars, running on the trail, beautiful. And I caught myself for like the first mile, like looking at my watch every like 30 seconds to make sure I wasn't overdoing it. And I got so irritated. I was like, you never used to do this. And then so I flipped my wrist, my watch back down to below my wrist, and then just ran and had fun with it. And I just think we don't, again, like, yes, you can have fun with it. Yes, you can work hard. Yes, you can go easy. But, we're in this, I think, to learn about ourselves. And I think if you really, truly want to figure out like how hard and how fast and how long we can go, because it's being proven week after week, I feel like, how fast people can go on these full distances, the 100-mile ultra, the Tour de France and cycling. Like we're breaking these barriers every single month, it feels like, in endurance sports. And that doesn't come from like ultimate restraint. It comes from, endless self-exploration and not being afraid to fail. And that's also, I think, an area in which we struggle with, in that, in the safety cocoon we've created the last like 4 years of everything's got to be safe and you can't take risks and I need this to go well. Is like we're like, it's like I think a lot of people are stuck on the first floor of life and afraid to like see what's on the second floor and then work their way up. But no matter what it is, and to do that, you got to take risks and you got to be willing to fail. And I think that's why like most of the billionaires on this planet have like gone bankrupt at least once. Like you gotta fail in order to you gotta be willing to fail. If you're not willing to fail, I don't think, and I do believe this, if you're not willing to fail, even in a glamorous way, you're never going to hit the top. You're never going to win equally as glamorously as if you're not afraid to fail in the same way.
Yeah, what you're saying about easy and hard are not paces, they're efforts. And I think back, I mean, I just think about this because, like, what you're talking, especially on the bike a lot of times. And, I think back to when, when I really did used to just race or ride with Chrono. And I was one of the things that came back was my first 70.3 at Muncie. You were there. And they had some weird detour on the bike course. And it was kind of a crappy road, and everybody was like really slowing down and being careful. I just remember like totally specifically going, I'm going all in right here, because everyone else was just worried and like taking it super slow. And I just hammered it through there. And I don't think that, like when I say hammer, I mean like go to, like a zone 3 thing, and it feels hard-ish, but not overly hard. You know what I mean? So I think that those are things that we kind of ignore sometimes. And, like I was saying about this year, I feel like I rode fairly easy, but it was almost harder for me because I was trying to, what you said, when you said like constraining ourselves is a problem. I think we're overly constrained with so many things, and people are going out and just crushing things and doing amazing things. And I think you're so right that you got to be willing to fail and at least give it a shot, because I just think we amaze ourselves sometimes. And like I said, man, I really do believe that by riding harder this year or last year was a different one, but just getting to the point where you can run. Like, I think I would have saved more time on that bike and then just been able to hold the run that I trained for, which wasn't, anything crazy. So I do fully believe in this. I do think that we can just hold ourselves back by trying to play safe all the time. And I think that has become kind of a thing now. And I don't necessarily think it's easier. I mean, we talk about sometimes how running slow is so damn hard. Well, run faster maybe, like I think about things like this, but we just have to try it to see if we can believe it. And I think that's where the experience and the learning comes in. You have to actually go out and give it a shot, and I think one of the problems is that we're afraid to do that in a race because we don't want to blow that up, but you can try it in training, and it's okay. It's like we don't need every day to be, soft and, okay. It should be an experimental ground, I think, training. Try and put yourself in situations that you might fail in occasionally, and then you start learning what that feels like, and then you understand your limits better.
And you can't know your limits unless you push them, right? I mean, you just get comfortable in it, which is just like, confirmation bias, really, is, like, this is my hard. And then everything that happens is that feels hard to you. Right. And but it's just, I agree. Like like I was reading through, earlier, checking on like some, what the word on the street was with Chat, and I popped on their not the website, but their page on Facebook, and like they canceled the Roca swim because I guess it's like torrential downpours or whatever. And somebody commented like, please think about the safety of everyone racing and cancel this race or at least delay it. It's Thursday. Like, honestly, that kind of comment is what's wrong with the world these days. Cancel it. Just it's for the safety of all. It's Thursday and it's raining. You would think that like they were dropping 800-pound razor blades from the sky at an enormous rate. It's just rain. Like, I don't know. I don't know a single solitary person that said, you know where I really found my limits and where I really grew? I woke up this one day and I decided to really push myself. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to see what I was made of. I wanted to get uncomfortable. I wanted to grow. I wanted to do something that scared me. So I got in my robe. I made a cup of tea and I sat on my couch for 45 minutes. And I've never felt like such a badass in my entire life. I know now that I can do anything. No one fucking does that. If you want to grow, you want to but that's where it's funny, right? Because now, in a lot of ways, like you're considered strong for taking the safe way out. And yes, no one wants to be irresponsible, but we have to, at one point, if we want to actually grow, you gotta be willing to push yourself. And your first triage shouldn't be to quit or shouldn't be to look for the easy way out, and it shouldn't be to stop. It should be, how can I still make this happen? Right? Like the person, we always use this analogy, like the person who spills their first cup of coffee in the morning. Oh, there goes today. Like, you've been awake for like 35 seconds. While I admit that it sounds like a disaster. But it's, how do you respond? Right? You're blending a smoothie and it explodes in the kitchen. Is it going to ruin your day? You're going to laugh about it. You know, there's so much. Like another example, like this is, I guess, not very similar, but somewhat. But Hayden brought some stuff from school home, and it was in the wrong side of his folder. And Allie threw it in the trash can, which is usually my job. And he was like, "Where is this packet? I was supposed to do it for homework." And she was like, "I thought it was done. I threw it away." And he was just like devastated because he thought it was homework. He was going to get in trouble. He started crying. And we reached out to his teacher. Just like, "Hey, like, this is a legit thing. Like, dog and eat his homework. Parents threw it away." And she was like, "No tears over schoolwork ever. It's not a big deal." And I was like, for one, that's a great teacher. But two, I was like, our reactions can be so strong to such minor things. But then our reactions can also be, you know, so incredibly minor to major things. And it's how we navigate those feelings, you know, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad, you know, to be restrained. But I do, like, when it comes to the, you know, figuring out, like, we got one life to live. And if you want to live it to its fullest and you want to get the most out of it, you can't live in a cocoon, you can't live in a bubble, and you can't be afraid to fail. Because you're not even going to live your life. You're just going to die one day. Like, you'll just be on this planet, because living isn't just breathing. Living is like getting out there, doing things that challenging you, signing up for an Ironman, training hard, doing things that scare you, pushing your limits, not always playing it safe, not being afraid to take a risk. Like, that's how you live. And no one will tell you different. No one will ever say, well, you know, the best way to get the most out of your life is just to sit inside all day. You know, get your groceries delivered, get your dog food delivered, Uber Eats. Don't ever leave your house. Just be. No, you will be alive, but you will not live. And that's the same thing with racing. If you want to get the most out of yourself, stop being so afraid to fail. Because what usually happens is you still come short of your goal because you were so restrained in your training. You will never get the fitness to reach it. Like, you just got to have these days and these sessions, these races where the goal is to fail. And you say the same thing. You tell athletes that. I've told athletes, like, I want you to go out and fail today. Let's see how quickly you can fail. I'm afraid what happened. Well, we're not going to know. Right? Like, when I picked up Hayden from baseball practice last night, the coach was like, "Hey," because Hayden's been just like plunked like 50 times this season because it's kid pitch and it's just horrendous. And he was like, "Guys, has anybody here not been hit by a pitch?" And they're like, "No." And he was like, "And look here, You're all still standing. You're all still alive. So next time you get back up the plate, stop ducking like you're on the beaches at Normandy, right? Like just get back in there and swing the bat. And I just don't think we take enough swings anymore.
Yeah, I know. I just, yeah, what you're saying about Uber Eats and all that. I mean, we've just, that's the thing about Watts was saying about technology. It's like we've created all these things, but it just creates a whole other layer of problems. You know, anxiety, you know, is almost a consequence of hyper civilization. There's so many things to worry about right now. And like you said about the homework, nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. You know, we got to face this stuff. I mean, you know, you're racing this weekend, just get your game face on, you know, and go out and get the job done. You know, look at it as a challenge and find something in yourself and be proud of all the work you've put in. You know, it's not life or death. You just go out and do the best you can and take it. I mean, it's like,
love it. Yeah. Get out there and get out there, bet on, you know, I think we have a podcast on that too. We'll leave you with that today. Get out there this weekend, no matter what it is you're doing. Take your shot. Don't be afraid to fail. Bet on yourself. And seriously, what's the worst thing that can happen? Not much, but there's a lot of really, really, really good things that more than likely can and will happen if you have that kind of approach. Take the reins off. Let them roll.
Yeah. Yeah. It's here. You signed up for it.
The reins off today.
A little bit.
You're probably going to get more hate from this podcast than the one where I said sugar was bad for you.
Yeah, you know what? Who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares? We're just talking
that's
about
all.
shit. And that's the thing is like people overreact. I'm just like, I'm fucking.
Hey, we've shot our shot for 801 episodes. So you know what? We got 199 to go. So if you don't want to be around to see more, then you know what? Take a pass. But we keep showing up and we'll keep doing so. Have a great weekend. Get out there, have some fun, shoot your shot, bet on yourself. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. We also have last couple days to sign up for round 2 of the online swim school. And you can reach out to Summer at operations@c26triathlon.com to get signed up for that. If you're looking for any information on coaching to end the year and start next year, click on the coach tab and find the coach that's right for you. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, buddy. I'll catch you next week, man.
Yeah, dude. Go Badgers.
All right. I know the Vols kicked that. Nice job. You got to be feeling pretty good about that.
I mean, I am, but I think you guys are gonna get USC this weekend.
All right.
I do. I got faith. I had a feeling. I was scrolling through the schedule, and I got this feeling.
Well, 16-point dogs. It would be a hell of a upset.
Is it at USC or is it Wisconsin?
It's at USC, which might actually be better. I think they're starting to feel a lot of pressure in that Camp Randall.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like it. Yeah, I'm going in. Badgers by 4.
All right, buddy, I like it. Vols by 50.
See you later.
All right,
that's right. We got a bye week. We'll take that too.
Okay. All right, see you later.
See you, man.